welcome to Where To, How Great Leaders Navigate Decisions. Leaders in general make decisions, and we make decisions which guide other people's decisions. And that means that you as a product manager, even if you may not be managing a team, are actually also still a leader. You make decisions that guide what an engineer codes. You make decisions when you write acceptance criteria that guide the tests that will be run. And that's actually a lot of weight on product managers' heads, that decision-making capability. So tell me if this sounds familiar to you. Someone comes up with an idea, and you sit there and you gather data, and you look through the data, and you look through customer interviews, and you try to figure out, is this an idea that we should move forward with? And then you maybe choose to move forward with it, but then you're not sure it was the right idea, and you're getting a little bit more feedback, and you're starting to have a lot of second guessing and self-doubt, and you are up all night as the feature or product you're working on is on its way to launch, and then it comes into fruition, it hits production, and it doesn't do what we want it to. It doesn't have the impact we wanted. It doesn't generate the outcomes we wanted, and that's sad. And that, to a certain degree, is the technology version of buyer's remorse. And if you've ever felt this, if you've ever felt that you invested tons of time and energy into something and it didn't generate the outcome, it only generated the output, it's deflating. And I don't want that to happen to you. And I also don't want that to happen to your team, because they are probably equally deflated. So we as product people, we as leaders, when we're making decisions, when we're choosing which persona to build for, when we're choosing which features or problems, more importantly, the problems, what problems do we want to solve for that person? I want you to get out of this speech a way of making decisions and communicating decisions so that everybody can be focused on those outcomes. And everybody can be part of generating those outcomes. And there are a lot of people talking about outcomes over outputs, and they're talking about decision trees. And I love Teresa Torres. This is nothing against her, but it's multi-step and it's complicated. And I wanted to make this more simple for people. And so my hope today is that you walk away with some very easy, simple tools in your tool belt, because you should continuously be adding tools to your tool belt that allow for you to be a better leader, meaning a better product manager and a better person who makes stronger decisions, which yield outcomes, but also guide other people's decisions to yield outcomes. And so a little bit about me. I operate right now as the product leader coach, which means I work with product executives, helping them be awesome. I have worked for all of the other logos on this company, on this slide, and many more. Always in a product capacity, either as a consultant, a contractor, or as an actual product manager or leader. And then on the bottom row are all the different places where I've taught product management, including a course on road mapping and the core product management 101 at General Assembly, product strategy, technical fundamentals at Product Institute. And when I am asked, what is product management at its core? What do product managers do? I always answer, we are the people who decide what to do next. We are decision makers. And to decide, I learned recently, actually comes from the idea of other words that end in side, like herbicide or pesticide, that it kills something. It strikes something out. And when we make a decision, what we're actually striking out is ambiguity. We're striking out uncertainty. And we're killing the ideas that are not going to generate the outcomes that we want. We are killing the energy expenditures, which are not ones we are confident are going to yield impact. We are killing the features that are not going to deliver customer and business value. And that is our role. And so when we make these decisions, which guide other people's decisions, we are striking out the ambiguity about whether or not someone should do something else. We are helping them focus their energy on what will be most productive in getting to the outcomes we want. And I have coached hundreds, if not thousands, of product leaders and product managers about how to do this. And I distilled everything I give in 4-hour lectures on product strategy and workshops and everything else down to 3 questions. And so those 3 questions all center on answering what are your goals? Because what are your goals is like a really hefty thing. So we're not going to ask what are your goals, what does success look like, or things like that. We're going to ask something else, which is more concrete, that will help us answer where next. Because that is our job, to answer where should we go next, to make that decision, to cut out that ambiguity. And it starts with the question, where to? Where do we want to go? What is the future we envision? Where to? And after that, we then ask, where from? Because we've created a where to, and we need to choose where next, and we need to know where we're coming from. So that's where from comes in. A lot of other people will advise you to go with where from first. Understand where you are, and then choose where you're going next. And I think that's very, very wrong. Not only does it keep you very restricted to understanding where you are coming from, and where to is much more expansive, but also it doesn't allow you to have direction. It just says, okay, we're here, where next? You can choose any direction in the radius around you about where to go next. But when we have where to, where we want to go, it sets a direction. It sets an endpoint. It sets a compass that helps guide us and the people we work with's decisions. So that one should always be first. And when these questions are used well, and when these questions are used wherever you want them to be used, because they're pretty short and easy, and you could use them in a conversation, you can put them up on a whiteboard, they simplify and speed up decisions because they narrow the options. We start killing ideas that are not going to be productive. We start killing the ideas that are not going to be valuable. And so let's center our conversation right now on where to and what is valuable and how this helps us understand what is valuable instead of what is only feasible. Because when we start from where from, we think about what's feasible. What do we have right now that yields what we can do next? But when we start with where to, we create a vision, and that can lead the way. John Doerr, the father of OKRs, I don't know how many of you are part of organizations that use objectives and key results, but he created the book on them. And he recently gave a TED Talk, and he said, we're all doing it wrong. You're all doing OKRs wrong. And what does he say we are doing wrong? He says that when we create an objective, it's revenue, it's retention. It doesn't actually inspire people. It doesn't help people understand the future we're trying to build together. And when we have that sense of a future we want to build together, when we have that sense of a vision of a better world, we then can choose whether or not the activities we're doing are valuable, meaning they help us get closer to where we want to go, whether or not they have impact, meaning they help us take one more step on our path to where we want to go. And that is why it is so crucial to start with a where to, and start with a where to that is bigger than a revenue number. It has to be something like a vision. It has to be something like a mission. It should be goal-oriented. It should talk about strategic intents, because when we create these things, or any combination of them, what happens is we create this compass. We create this compass that Adam Grant wants us to have, which helps everyone head in the right direction. It isn't going to make all the little decisions for you, but it helps you have more confidence when you're making those decisions, that you are making them with the idea of what is valuable, what is going to help me get where I want to go. And because of that, and my love for navigational themes, the title I like best for your goals or your vision or your mission is North Star. Your North Star metric, your North Star of your company is a guiding light. Even in ancient times, the North Star was a guiding light that helped people navigate the open ocean so that they could find land. And that is incredibly powerful. And we, We as product people have the power to deliver a North Star, a vision, a mission, a tangible goal for the teams we work with that will guide their choices, that will guide the efforts they put forth so that it generates the outcomes we want. And that is awesome. And so I want to tell you about when I was part of a company, JustWorks. JustWorks has payroll and benefits for small to medium-sized businesses. There is nothing sexy about payroll and benefits. And you may think JustWorks is a boring place to work because we're just worrying about those sorts of things. But I can tell you that the energy in a JustWorks office is palpable because we are all inspired to help the entrepreneurs we serve. And the North Star metric we relied on to see whether or not we were doing our jobs was lives covered. At the time I was there, we had a goal of hitting 100,000 lives covered, not users, not customers, not companies, lives covered. Because what that communicates to every Just worker is that the work that we do, whether it's payroll or benefits or customer service, it helps people know that they can put food on their table, a roof over their head, and take their kid to urgent care and not worry. And that's a responsibility we took to heart. And it impacted every choice we made. And I can tell you that because of a strong North Star metric like this, which is inspirational and empowering, JustWorks is a long way past 100,000 lives at this point. And you'll hear more and more about JustWorks in the future because someday we're going to go public when the markets go better. And being a member of a team like this, where we honestly live and breathe our North Star and think about how we serve people, those lives we cover, it guides decisions up and down the totem pole. It is incredibly powerful. But I understand not everybody lives in an organization like that. So you as a product manager can actually do something. You can create a North Star for your area. And so when you're thinking about your North Star, you can read the whole Amplitude playbook on how to create a strong North Star. And I recommend it because it is quality, but it is long. So I'm going to give you, again, 3 things. Customer centric, it has to be centered on your customers. Number 2, it has to be connected. It has to be connected to the larger business vision, as well as enabling people to feel connected to it, enabling people to think about how their efforts are going to be connected towards impacting this North Star, which in turn impacts our customers. And then finally, it should be consistent. 3 C's, consistent. That means your North Star metric should not change every quarter and probably even shouldn't change every year. It should be something that people can attach themselves to, that they can feel like they are continuously working towards. And what they're working towards is this future. They're working towards a future of how we as a company want to serve our members and customers and partners. It's a future where they are happier. And when we have this sense of a future, it's amazing. But we may not have it because our leadership hasn't created it, but you can make that better. You can be the person who is always providing a clear where to for your area of influence. And if you aren't sure how to do this, create a draft. Listen to what leadership is saying and create a draft of your where to. This is where I think we're trying to go. This is what I think the vision we've got is. This is the way I think we're trying to make the people we serve's lives better, and get some feedback. Say, I put this together so that I can guide my team. What adjustments would you make? It's not a challenging sort of question. You're not saying, oh, leader, you failed me by not providing me a strong vision, mission, objective, goal, etc. What you're saying is I want to be a strong leader for my team. I want to help them focus on what matters. I want to make sure they're putting their efforts towards the outcomes we want to generate. I want them to feel good about what they're doing and have impact. And therefore, I've created this where do we want to go statement. What adjustments would you make to that? And you'd be surprised what can happen. Because when you do that sort of thing, sometimes it ends up on the wall of your company when you show up. Because that bottom up, managing up stuff, you master that, the sky's the limit. And you can actually impact much more than your team if you do something in a respectful way. Additionally, if your North Star metric right now is revenue, that's okay. Put the one that you actually know is a real North Star, that it's customer centric, that it's connected, that it's consistent, right next to the revenue, because it should be connected to that anyways. And track that for your team. Make it more tangible for your team, and also talk about metrics like the revenue and the retention and the churn and things like that. Those are all important metrics. I'm not saying they aren't, but they aren't inspirational. And so when we are leading teams, we want to inspire them. We want to get them excited to come to work today. We want to get them excited about the problems they are solving, because that's how they solve them more elegantly. That's how they come up with even more incredible solutions. And so add a North Star metric to the way you're working. And think about it as that future. It's a future how we want to serve our members, our customers, our partners. And that future is different. It's different than what is going on right now. We have to understand that the future is something that doesn't exist right now. And so we have to also evaluate, what are we currently doing? And that is where from. How are we currently serving our members, our customers, and our partners? And where is the gap? Where is the gap between the future we've envisioned and where we are right now? And so I mentioned earlier my love for navigation. You might have been thinking, what do these questions seem kind of familiar to me? And that's because they're inspired by Google Maps. Google always asks you first, what's your destination? And then it asks a second question. Where are you coming from? Where is your starting point? Where from? And its default is always your current location, because it makes sense to be starting where you are right now. But that starting point is what helps us understand how far we are from our vision. And so that starting point is where product operations comes in. It helps us quantify and qualify, how are we doing right now? Where are we doing fantastic? Where is our kingdom? Which customers have high NPS? Which segments are incredibly overjoyed with us? And which ones are not? Who are we not serving as well as we hope to, as we want to? That desired destination that we have. And creating that quantification and qualification through user research and product operations and a variety of other things that helps us understand how far away are we from where we want to be. But the other great thing it shows us is, what are our strengths? By going through those exercises, you also understand what your strengths are. And that could be data, and that could be customer retention, and that could be that you have a really dedicated team or a really small and nimble team. Small may be better than big. And understanding what makes you special, what makes you unique, what can you be building on top of to help you get closer to your desired destination. Because when we build on top of our strengths, we increase our strengths. We get stronger. Our positioning gets stronger. And we don't run into walls as often. And so I was lucky enough to work at Wharton, and I was TAing a class on general management. But I got to work with a professor of product strategy there. And he added a layer to the way I talk about product strategy that is centered on this. And he says that it is only a strategic decision if it is leveraging a competitive advantage you already have. Otherwise, it's just copycat. So you have to understand, what are your competitive advantages? What makes you strong? Where is your foundation? And build upon that. And that is why, after we've defined our where to, we evaluate our where from. Where are we coming from? And that then becomes where we decide where to go next. So where to, where from, where next. And where next is actually a decision loop with where from, because hopefully every time you define your where next, you make it there. Your next flagpole, your next goalpost, you get there. And you know what happens when you get there? You have a brand new where from. You are now in a different location. You have moved from here to here. And that's awesome, because here I know more. Here I have more knowledge. Here I have a better understanding of my customers, the market, et cetera. I've done something. I might not have been successful with my where next, but I've learned something. And when I learn something, I can make another decision about where my next where next was. And I don't get stuck in the build trap of, I previously had a long list of things to do about where my where next was, and I'm just checking them off. What it means to actually be outcome-oriented and data-driven and agile is to understand when you are now in your where next, you have a different perspective. You are coming from a new where from, and you need to evaluate what is the best next step for you. And if you want to think about this like Google Maps, think about that magical moment when you are driving somewhere and Google says, hey, I found you a faster route. That is what it means to be agile. To say, I made a plan, but I've learned if I divert something, that will actually help us get to our where to, help us get to our outcome faster, more efficiently, with lower costs, with higher impact. And that is powerful. And so I want you to always be cycling through this where from, where next, where from, where next, always with the in mind of my where to. How can I get closer and closer and closer and closer to that point? But knowing that whatever I knew yesterday is not what I know today. Whatever I knew last week or last quarter when I put together my roadmap is not what I know right now, based on the data I'm seeing of my users and my customers and my prospects. So I need to be constantly reevaluating that, constantly creating this loop to understand where are we coming from today and where is our best next step forward. Because that's what it really means to be outcome-oriented and data-driven and agile. So when you're thinking about those things, think about where to, where from, where next. Where to, where from, where next. When it comes to where next, there are options. There are so many options. I never want you to choose the first idea that goes into your head. I never want you to take the idea that gets handed to you from upon above. I want you to be thinking about, based on where we want to go and where we are right now, what is the best next option? What is the best way we can go there? What along the way through our opportunity discussions are we understanding which option is going to be valuable? Which option is going to have high impact? And if we're back to Google Maps, and I will bring back Google Maps as often as I want to, Google will give you options. They will say, do you want to drive your own car? Do you want to take public transportation? Do you want to walk or bike or hail a cab? And in the product world, in the business world, this is the build, buy, partner question. Build, buy, or partner. Should we do it ourselves because it's part of our strengths? Should we buy it from someone else because it's part of their strengths? Or should we partner with someone because our strengths together build something even more incredible? And so there aren't enough examples out there of how companies choose to partner, but they are there in history. Frito and Lay's, do you know how they eventually became a partnership? Because Fritos was on the West Coast and Lay's was on the East Coast, and they said, you know what? You've got a distribution channel. If I give my potato chips to Fritos and they give their corn chips to Lay's, we can actually have corn chips and potato chips everywhere in the country. That's how that started. Partnership, by understanding someone else has a strength you don't. And they both grew, and then they grew together. So Marine Concepts builds boat covers. I don't own a boat. I'm not that fancy. If you are, congratulations. Marine Concepts has a boat cover that covers your boat in 2 minutes instead of 20. It's fantastic. And they were in 2 markets earlier this year, and they were lucky enough to think through their options, because most people would have said, go direct to consumer, create an Instagram ad, go on Facebook, start having influencers talking about how great your boat covers are. And they said, we're not good at that. That's not one of our strengths. We make boat covers. And so instead they partnered with dealerships around the country, because it turns out when they did some customer research, people buy boat covers at one crucial moment, when they're buying a boat. So if you're buying a boat, you're talking to a dealer, and that dealer has so much joy about adding another line item and demoing this amazing boat cover for you. And so now they're in over 40 markets nationwide, like that. Because rather than saying we need to do this ourselves, they recognize what one of their strengths was, and that is designing boat covers, not selling. And they partner with other people who are. And now they could be focused on their engineering abilities, and maybe they will create a motorcycle cover or bigger boat covers or whatever it is. But they are working on what they're good at, and they are partnering with other people who have other strengths. And so think about that internally also. Is there another team that I could be partnering with that they have some sort of engineering strength or a design strength that will allow for my product to be better? I don't have to do it alone. I don't have to walk alone. I have team members that I can partner with, and together we can get to the best where next. Because that where next will get us to our larger where to for everyone. And that's a good reason to partner. So I want you to use these 3 questions everywhere. They're mobile, they're social, they're local. You can ask somebody at a bar them, you can write them on a whiteboard, where to, where from, where next. Set your goals. Where from? Know your strengths. Where next? Choose your next step based on what you know right now, and then do it again and again and again. And that's building and iterating, and that's being outcome oriented, and that's being data driven, and that's being agile. And together, this will help you make better and faster decisions, and it will help the team you work with make better and faster decisions. And you will hopefully generate those outcomes and get closer and closer to your where to every day. But if you take one thing out of my talk today, one thing, it is this next thing. And that is that as you use these things as kill criteria, you get to say, no, I don't think this fits with our vision. I don't think this fits with our mission. This isn't something that leverages a strength. This isn't part of what we chose to do next. Right now, this isn't fitting in with our strategy. I don't want to put my energy in there. I don't think my team should put their energy in. Use it as kill criteria. Make decisions. Strike out that ambiguity, strike out that uncertainty, and know that you have the power to say no, especially when you frame it like this. This doesn't fit into something that will be impactful towards getting us where we want to go. We don't have strength in this area, so we're literally flying blind. Or we previously made a choice about this, that we're going to focus our energy on this because we think that is the best next step forward. What you're talking about is a distraction. It's not what we've agreed on as next. It's not what we've agreed on as best. So use it as kill criteria and just say no. So I'm going to remind you that it all starts with where to, understanding your goals, having that set up. It's worth the investment. It's worth the investment so that you can get alignment, and so that you can use it as a kill criteria, so that you can use it as a decision criteria to speed people up so they don't get stuck in analysis paralysis, and they don't get stuck with the self-doubt we were talking about. And most importantly, they don't end up with the technological equivalent of buyer's remorse, where they've invested time and money and they wish they hadn't, because it doesn't have impact, because it doesn't generate the outcomes we want. And so remember your where to, set your where to, encourage your where to, repeat your where to in ways that everybody understands what about the customer it is, the customer centricity, how they're connected to it, how it's connected to something larger, and that it's consistent. So I hope you enjoyed today. These are different ways to get in touch with me. And I think we're over time. So apologies, Mike.
No need to apologize. This is great. This was great. So thank you, Tami. And I have one question for you, but I do want to invite others. I know there's a few minutes past what we normally go through in terms of time, but for those of you, if you have a few minutes more and you have a question for Tami, put it in the Q&A. And to the extent that Tami has time and there are questions coming in, maybe we could take more of your questions. The one question I wanted to ask you, Tami, is that I imagine, people watching this hopefully got excited by it, hopefully could see things that they could start using in their day-to-day. If somebody, let's just say they said, all right, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve out the next 2 hours to take what I just learned and do something with it. I want to be productive. I want to start actually taking action. And I love that one of the last slides you shared, it kind of gives you an idea of how you might be able to start taking action in terms of groups or buckets. But literally, like, what would you recommend people do? Say again, they dedicate a couple hours, few hours, whatever it is to get started. What are the steps that you would implore them to start doing now to actually take this and run with it?
So step 1 would be defining your where to. And the most fun way I've been using recently to just do that is, so Amazon has the press release. This is a little bit more fun, and it's writing a thank you note. So you write a thank you note from the customer you want to serve, where they're saying to you, this is the impact you had on me. Thank you so much for creating this technology or this product or this feature because it did X for me. And so I think that's a really good way of summarizing where do we want to go, right? You want to be impacting people's lives in a positive way where they're sending you thank you notes. And so start there and then look at what you currently have on your roadmap and say, are these things going to help us get that thank you note? And if they aren't, start crossing them out, saying these aren't the best way we could be investing our time. Let's come up with some better options, because that's what we really want to generate. We want to get to this thank you note. We want to have happy customers who are so excited that they are investing the time to write down the impact we've had on them. And so that's what I would say. I hope that's a good 2-hour exercise.
I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you for that. I do see an audience question here, and I'm going to take this. If there are any more, feel free to put them in the Q&A section. Question is, does this strategy change at all for a business in the 0 to 1 phase, focusing on building the initial product versus, an established product, established business, those that are usually focusing on, say, growth?
So in the 0 to 1 phase, I think enough people talk about this, but you have to fall in love with your problem, right? And you're figuring out how you can solve this problem. So your problem is your where to, we want to solve this. And so that's where that focus is. And you're going through a variety of solutions, and your where from and where next are, we tried this solution. Did it work? Did it not? Right? Oh, we learned this about our customers, right? And you're constantly iterating towards product market fit, which is that one. When you're scaling a company, it becomes a different question. It's, okay, we still want to solve this problem. And either we've solved it and we're thinking wider about more problems for more people. And therefore we're trying to figure out what's the next problem to solve, which will help our market be better, operate better, be happier. How do we deliver more value? Or it's simply that you only have part of the puzzle done, right? You have a vision of all the things you're going to do that serve somebody, and you're evaluating, okay, now we've checked these 2 boxes. People are happy with us. Okay, what's next for us? What's that next feature, that next product we're going to create that either serves our market better so that they have more value they're getting out of us and they're potentially giving us more money, or what new markets can we enter into where we can serve them in similar ways? And that depends on what your vision is, right? Where do you want to go? And so I think that's the main difference. Is in the beginning, you're figuring out what's your first thing that's going to have legs. And in the future, you're saying, okay, we are already doing these things well. How do we build upon that? How do we build upon those strengths and serve more and more and get closer to our future?
Yeah. Got a couple more audience questions. Do you have time for 1 or 2 more questions? Awesome. Question was about that where to. Should we consider a time frame for the where to? Does it vary based on whatever might be company size, industry, team size? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think that it's everything is the answer. That if you're setting a vision for your company, it's going to be 5-10 years down the line, right? But if you're setting a product vision because you're a product leader over a product area, that may be more like 18 months down the line. And if you're setting a mission or you're just setting the objective for what your feature is going to do, that's much smaller scale. We know our customers are currently frustrated with X, and we don't want that to be the case. We want them to be happy with us. We want them to be happy with our reporting, and they're not. Our current state is that they are not. So we want to move that needle, right? Is that smaller where to part of a larger cascading goals that leads to the bigger company vision? Hopefully, that's that connected nature. But it depends on your area of influence. And so it can be any and all of the above, just depending on what you want it to be. And what I would say is as a general product manager, start with yours and then go 1 level up, the way I refer to with the where to and presenting it to your manager, and seeing where it goes from there.
That's great. We'll do one more question here. What guidance do you have for experienced senior product leaders who are ready to strike out on their own, start their own consultancy, or take their career to the next level? So those looking to level up here.
So I was talking about this recently. So depending on where you are, Ravi Mehta has a fantastic article on shapes of product people and what your skill set should be if you're a APM, a PM, a GPM, a director of product, VP product. So I think the first thing is defining your own personal where to. Do you want to be a CPO? Do you want to run a consultancy? Do you want to be a CEO and an entrepreneur? What is it that you want your future to look like? And then making decisions around that, because do not choose anyone else's path. It's your life, it's your path. Make that decision for yourself. And so once you've done that, you can then treat yourself like a product and say, okay, where am I coming from right now? Do a 360. What's going on right now? What are my strengths? What are my opportunities for improvement? Where are my capability gaps for where I want to go? Because I want to be a CEO, and that means I need to learn about finance, or I want to be a CPO, and that means I need to learn about processes on teams, and I need to start doing that, or I need to be thinking more strategically or understanding how to connect my product metrics to business metrics. There's so many different gaps depending on the path you're choosing, right? And that becomes then your roadmap or your flight plan for how you get to where you want to go.